I'm always on the lookout for new concepts and trends, and during a visit to Cape Town in 2017, I came across Secco Drink Infusion, a product made by Wessel Pieterse at Tastelab in Woodstock. Wessel is a food scientist and entrepreneur. In this episode, he shares the lessons he learned launching his first product, which is now exported to 18 countries. My name is Holger Meier, and this is DrinksWorld. Welcome to the show, and today my guest is food scientist and entrepreneur Wessel Pieterse. Welcome to the show, Wessel.
Morning, Holger. Thanks so much. How are you doing?
It's really nice to catch up with you after the long COVID break. We first started chatting after I saw your product somewhere in Cape Town in 2017. When did you start your business?
I started it actually, you would have seen it just when it launched. I launched Secco, a range of drink infusions at the end of 2017. So that's kind of when it all started.
Okay, and that was when the whole gin revolution started, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, so I think that's when I started loving gin. I started enjoying gin myself. So I was always playing with adding infusions, adding dried fruit, adding spices, but I wouldn't have all of it at home at any given time. So I kind of thought about how could I solve this problem of having something for myself at home to garnish my drink with. And then, Secco was kind of naturally born.
So explain to us what Secco is for people that haven't seen the product.
So basically what Secco is, it's a single serving sachet that would contain different fruits and spices in combination. So you've got a raspberry rose hibiscus one, there's a pepper one there's a berry one with strawberries, blueberries and peppercorn, there's one with ginger and lime and cinnamon, and then there's spice pomegranate, which is basically pomegranate with cardamom and a seed for the people that love more spices in their gin. So basically what happens is there's this little sachet, you open it, you pour it into your glass, and then you add your gin and your tonic, and it naturally colors and flavors your gin. So there's no additives, there's no colorants, there's no flavorant. So it's all just extracting the natural flavors and colors from the fruit and spices.
Yeah, you make it sound so easy. You saw this need, and then you came up with this product. Maybe talk us through that process.
I think it's always important to stick to an industry that you know. So for me, naturally, studying food science, I understood food safety and understood a food environment and kind of packaging and manufacturing. And then again, when studying business, it kind of helps when you're in conversations with store owners and stuff to understand the cost structures and all of that around it. And then luckily for me, I happened to study product design and innovation in Spain. So again, there I learned how to look at a product and reassess the whole time. Is the packaging right? Is the product right? Is the price point right? And kind of so that all came together in the end when launching Secco. I didn't think it would become my main business, but it kind of did. But I worked with an amazing branding company. For me, branding was key in the beginning. I thought what would you spot on a shelf first? That's the packaging, and then people would be drawn to that. So I worked with an amazing branding company in Cape Town, and they actually worked with me for a couple of months. We went through so many trials and errors and coming up with the correct packaging for Secco that would explain what it was, but also attract the consumer, because dried fruits and spices usually don't have the best packaging on the shelf.
No,
I wanted something to stand out.
And there are, now there's a lot of different little mixing packets and gin boxes and stuff on the market, but they all they're not on the same level of when it comes to the packaging.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I think there's quite a few ones. There are quite a few ones. There are some nice ones. There's some ones that I think have come and gone. But I have seen quite a few in the market. I think it's just key to at the end of the day, the product within the packaging must be of high quality. So we only use a specific type of dried fruit. We only choose out the whole berries and the whole spices. So you don't sit with these little bits in your mouth in the end.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's key. I think also just product placement and actually getting to market first was something that helped us quite a
Yes.
bit. So we were there first, so all the stores were excited. And I think after that, it does become quite difficult for other brands to enter the market because, I mean, it's a very niche market. So it is quite difficult for new players to enter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can maybe service your local markets, but not really build a brand.
Yeah. So I think that's something for us. I think people identified the brand as well with kind of a drink infusion or garnish. So I think that's something that really helped us was to get to market first.
Yeah. When you were studying in Spain, and I spoke to the guys from Hope on Hopkins, Lucy and Lee, and I mean, they were inspired to start their distillery because they did a trip through Spain and saw all the gin, and they said, this is what we want to do. Did you experience the gin revolution in Spain?
So not as much in Spain. I actually studied in Spain, and then at the end of 2016, that same year, I went to France to a food conference. And then walking through the liquor section, I just noticed like a massive amount of like gin guys and a lot of players entering the market. And I saw all of them adding dried fruit and spices to their gin or even fresh fruit. So I saw this like massive trend towards gin and garnishes in 2016 in France. And then I started paying attention to like bars. What are they adding? What type of flavors are they using? So I actually like started going to a lot of bars and ordering gins and kind of like sussing out what the main ingredients were they were using and what consumers like most. And I would ask the barman like, what's your most popular flavor you're selling? And I kind of like did a little bit of market research like that before I launched.
And how long did it take you to bring this product to market?
It took from concept to launch. It was about 6 months. Obviously, sourcing dried fruit and spices isn't the most difficult thing in the world. So it was just getting the combinations right and then basically developing the packaging, getting something right that would protect your product. We went through a lot of tasting phases of just selling sachets, but actually the fruit would just break. So we had to start selling it in a box. So that whole process took about 6 months until I could launch. But then we also went very small. I was packaging at home, had just had 2 staff members at the time helping me, package stock. And then we just focused on one liquor store in Cape Town to see how it would sell before we actually scale up and go into market.
Yeah. And if I look at our correspondence, our email correspondence, you clearly told me, no, you're not ready to move out of Cape Town. You don't have enough stock. So it looks like you really started small and you weren't, you knew what you wanted.
Yes, I think that's the problem with a lot of startups. I think a lot of guys think I've got this amazing concept. Let's employ 8 people. Let's get a facility where you're going to package. Let's go massive from the beginning. I think that's what I maybe did right is I mean, in the beginning, I was actually packaging by myself at home. And then I just tested it in one store. And then my goal was to get the product into a company with a national footprint. So going to like Tastelab or Yappy Chef first, so we could advertise. And then as soon as you can advertise on social media, I think it was important to have a national footprint. Because if somebody from Joburg or Durban contacted me, I wouldn't want to say, so I don't have a place where you can buy it. So I think our main goal was to first list on one of these national online retailers. Also start very small. So as we grew, I then rented a space and I then employed more staff, and then it became a whole other ballgame because then you just start focusing on a lot of supply issues and pricing and stuff like that, because then you actually had a real business versus just like a little hobby at home.
Now, what does the factory look like now compared to then?
Now it's quite a big place. We've got 8 permanent packaging staff that just sit from the morning into the evening. We used to also dry the fruit ourselves, but we actually couldn't keep up with the drying, and focusing on seasonality and stuff wasn't our speciality. So I also realized that I had to outsource that quite quickly. So we then started working with local fruit dryers and also international suppliers of fruit to get the best fruit seasonality and dry in the best place to be able to supply all year round. So at the moment, we don't dry ourselves anymore, but we've got 8 permanent packaging staff that just sit and package from 8 to 5, and then we ship from there.
Did you have to train the consumer, or did the consumer understand exactly what the product was for?
So I think there's two types of consumers we found in the beginning. There were the consumers that immediately understood it because they were looking for something like it. They saw it on Yappy Chef. They were following us on Instagram. But actually, until today, I mean, we've been going for 4.5 years, and it's still today when we go to a market and you show somebody it, they still they're only seeing it for the first time and they actually then understand the product. So, I mean, there's still people learning, there's still people seeing it for the first time. So I think it's important to keep educating people because, yeah, sometimes they don't know what's inside the packaging or what it is used for.
Where's your biggest takeoff? Is it through those online retailers, or do you service a lot of the places that sell gin and products like that?
No, so our biggest takeoff is definitely through the online retailers in South Africa. So I think that's our biggest market. And then also we've got our own online stores. So there's the Secco online store for Europe and for Hong Kong and the US. And the US we also sell through Amazon. And that's actually one of our biggest route to markets, as well as the Amazon market.
And how do you do that? Have you got logistics set up in those countries then?
Yes. So that is actually one of my main learnings from starting a business. In the beginning, if somebody from overseas spotted your brand and they would send an email to say, we want to distribute in Switzerland, I would get so excited. I would say, oh, yes, please, this is the price. Here's products, send them samples. Because you're so eager and so keen to get your product out there. But what I quickly realized is that I had to do research on agents and distribution companies and other companies before you actually start a partnership with them. So what we now do have is we've got the right partners in the right countries. So we have got distribution agents in a couple of countries, and they actually order from us. They hold the stock, and then they would supply to Amazon or other stores. Okay. So the rest kind of moves towards them in terms of sales after they've ordered, which is also good because that pushes them to sell the product and to market and to focus on their social media and doing festivals and doing trade shows and stuff.
Yeah, I've also heard that from some of the gin makers in South Africa that were so excited to get orders from Europe, and then they ended up having wonderful partners, but they don't have the same ambitions, I guess.
Yeah, so I think it's key to also find the right partner and also to look at what they're selling at the moment and where they're selling. And I think that's been quite a nice thing for me as a South African brand, or Secco as a South African brand, that I was looking at where the other gin guys and the tonic guys are selling overseas, and then kind of connecting with the people that are already selling a staple of South African products, because I think they're passionate about the product. They already understand the gin trade in their country. So then Secco kind of cottoned on to that. And in a similar way, as soon as we've found a distribution partner in a new country, if you've then now been working with gin brands and tonic brands locally, you kind of link them to the same distribution partner. So then it helps with sale, and it does help to drive sales if there's a bundle of gin related products in a market. And if it's the same agent, I think that just helps the agent on the other side to get listings and to kind of have a bundle together. If you follow people on social media and go through their websites, you can quickly see who sells where, and then you can kind of try and connect with distributors in the same areas. But it is also nice. I think in South Africa, there's a culture where the brands want to help each other.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of introductions to agents in other countries or distributors through local gin brands or through tonic brands. So in a similar way, we kind of help each other. I think there's a nice culture in the South African gin industry.
Yeah. And how many countries do you supply now?
At the moment, we're in 18 countries around the world. I mean, that goes from Mozambique, Namibia, Mauritius locally, and then Europe, a few countries, and then also Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia. We actually just listed with Woolworths in Australia, which is a nice new market for us to enter. So there's 18, and then there's about 2 more we're working on the moment. So hopefully we'll be in 20 countries by the European summer.
Okay, that sounds very exciting. And retail chains in South Africa, is there a market? Is there an opportunity there?
Yes, definitely. So we distribute through provincial distributors.
Okay.
So for each province, we've got a different distributor and they deal directly with retailers. So we do through them, we supply to Pick and Pay, we supply to Tops at Spa, we do Liquor City. There's a few of the bigger retailers we deal, or it's mainly Spa and Pick and Pay actually, where we sell through their liquor stores.
And how has COVID affected the business?
So obviously the first couple of months was hard.
Yeah.
When everything came to shut down, you didn't know what to do. I wanted to keep my employees going because they've really worked so hard over the years. So like my first priority was to keep them and their families going, because supporting 8 families and letting that go is not easy. So we kind of tried to let it go. And then I focused a lot on exports, because locally with the liquor trade opening and closing and our products sitting on a shelf in a liquor store, we were kind of like, our hands were tied. We couldn't move it from the stores. The stores were shut. So in South Africa, it was actually quite challenging. But then we found that overseas, consumers started drinking more at home. They started playing with like home mixology kits and stuff. So we actually started focusing a lot on exports then and entering new markets, which actually worked amazingly well. We launched, I think during COVID, we launched in like hard lockdown, we launched in about 8 new countries, of which the US was one of them. So it was a massive win for us, actually, just because consumers were sitting at home, they were drinking more, they were on social media more, so they probably found us, looked at more recipes. So that actually helped. In South Africa, it kind of died down a bit over that season, but also it helped us focus on other opportunities, looking at private label, looking at other stuff. So COVID in general in South Africa, I think we took a knock, but in terms of general sales and growth as a brand, I think we actually learned a lot and started focusing on new opportunities. So in a whole, I think we actually did quite well.
I'm very glad to hear that. Wessel, you were part of this My Kitchen Rules program on television. Tell us a little bit about that.
Isaac, a friend, and I, we decided to enter just for the fun of it. And then obviously there was a round of interviews. The next thing we got a call to say we're in the top 10 and we need to go into a COVID bubble in Johannesburg the week after. So there was like a massive scramble to kind of keep your company going while living in Johannesburg. But I mean, it was so much fun. We got to know so many nice contestants, so many nice judges, and you kind of these challenges got thrown at you. And at the end, we won, which was a bizarre experience. We didn't go into it thinking we won. So that's actually given a nice platform for new opportunities where people have spotted the brand, people recognize you, and they say like, oh my word, we've now tried your product. Or people stop you somewhere in a coffee shop or something, and they said, oh my word, Wessel, I saw you on TV. I love your brand. I've bought it somewhere. So definitely has like given some brand recognition through social media, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And was it a platform to actually talk about your brand, or was it not really possible?
No, it wasn't really possible on the show itself. But I think the link that people made is they went and followed you on social media. That if you post something about it, or if you on your profile, if it says I'm the owner of Secco, I think a lot of people went through there and like recognize the brand.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah, but unfortunately, no brands were allowed to be spoken of on TV.
Yeah. And do you think people can still see that series?
I think it is available. I think there was a rerun on TV now. Okay. I'm not sure when it is on, but I think it is available on Showmax or Catch Up.
Okay.
So either one of those, and there's definitely a rerun happening. So people keep their eyes out for My Kitchen Rules. It's season 3.
Season 3, okay.
Yes.
And then you also involved in some other project. You spoke about Maker's Landing. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Maker's Landing is a space, it's actually based in the cruise terminal in the Cape Town Harbour. And it's a space where they've created a little market area. So they're about, I think, 12 to, I think at the moment, maybe 18 food stalls. Where you can try different local cuisines. So it's quite focused on like Cape Malay flavors, some Indian flavors, and it's really nice space. But the main part of it, what they're trying to do is I'm involved as a mentor there. So every 6 months, we choose 8 new incubatees. So it's people with a concept of a food product that they either have started and kind of you're trying to get it on the go, or if you've got a concept and you want to start it from scratch, you can apply every 6 months. And that's actually quite fun. So you go through a course where you learn about marketing, you learn about financials, you learn about distribution, you learn about branding. And we try and take you through the program within 6 months. And after 6 months, you try and launch product onto a shelf. And if it's not ready, we kind of mentor you and guide you through the next steps. So you always have got somebody holding your hand through that part that you can always go back. I mean, I sometimes sit and work from Makers Landing, and you've got people from the previous program come in and ask questions, or they ask the current guys, like, guys, have you launched in Spa? How can I get into Spa? Like, it's a very nice environment for food startups to be in. So I think for anybody interested in entering the food space, I think that's a great place to start, or to get in touch, or to apply for the next program.
If you talk about the market, is there an actual market where they sell those products?
Yes. So not necessarily all the incubatees would have a stand at the market, but the market is open, I think, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. And you can go and you can walk around. So it's open to the public.
Okay.
So there's a bakery, there's a Pinot and Sons distillery, there's a brewery, there's a coffee stand, there's Kusisters, there's Rooties, there's all different types of things. You can actually just go walk around and have a look, and then you can see the incubator space. And it's actually, at the moment, they just filmed MasterChef in the space. So you can still go and see the MasterChef setup. You can go and take pictures kind of like on the set. And I think every week they've got a meet and greet with the current contestants from MasterChef. So it's a very nice food environment to be in.
Okay, that sounds exciting. We're busy watching that MasterChef series that ran there.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And the contestants, I think, this year are great. I mean, I'm having a lot of fun watching it.
Yeah, us too. And the future, where do you see potential? Is the gin revolution something of the past, or is there still a big demand for your product? Other opportunities?
So it's difficult to say what the future will hold, but I mean, in terms of the sales of Secco, we are still growing, we're still expanding internationally. I think locally it's becoming quite a bit competitive for gin brands. We might see a few of them die down. I think it is becoming quite tricky, and people are starting to go back to drinking more mass-produced gin, but I'm really hoping that craft gin will stay around, because I mean, it's such a good product. And we're seeing rise of tequilas and rises of rums, and more people drinking infused vodkas and seltzers. So I think that's something where our brand can actually pair with all of those. So I think our brand would stay, because people are still adding it to other drinks. But I'm hoping the gin will stay around. I love the local brands. I love what they've done. I love the different flavors and infusions. And I mean, from cannabis to berries to, I mean, Fynbos, there's to Rooibos. I mean, there's so many nice local gins. So I'm hoping they'll stay around.
Don't forget the elephant dung.
Yes, and the elephant dung.
Yeah. I mean, the gin thing has really given a new lease of life to the liquor category, I guess.
Yes, no, definitely.
And you mentioned private label earlier. Why did you decide to go into that?
So initially, I mean, private label is one of those things that nobody wants to do it, because you want to see your brand grow and you want to see your brand on a shelf. But my parents, or my dad's in the food industry as well. And then once I spoke to him about private label, and his advice to me was literally just, if you aren't going to do it, they're going to go to your competitor and they're going to make money off the sales. So he just said, if you can do private label, do it. So we actually then switched to doing quite a bit of private label, quite a bit of things for stores, for brands, and it's been a massive growth. So we do private label for 680 stores in Europe. We're working with a local online retailer for them on private retail. We're working with a large local liquor brand on packaging stuff for them. So I think it's important to always work with the people in the market and kind of see what they need and fulfill their needs. Otherwise, somebody else is going to do it, and at the end of the day, you want the business, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're not only looking at the consumer and what their needs are, you're also looking at other businesses and how you can help them with promoting or working with their brands. That's very interesting. A good angle.
Yeah, so For local gin brands, you can do boxes for gift boxes. You can do dried fruit in neck tags. You can do tea bags if they want that angle. There's so many options in different like forms of packaging and also flavors and combinations you can look at, and you can pitch it to brands. And next thing they say yes, and you've got another basically brand under their label. So it is very nice. I think it's important to kind of work with people in the industry. I think the most important thing for like the key takes out for me as Secco is to first like to test the product in the market and to kind of start small. I think that was the key learning for me. People rush into things, and that's when you make mistakes and also lose a lot of money. So I would say my key takeout for Secco was first test the market and also start slow and also build your brand and work with your employees, be interested in them. Because they also want to come to a nice environment where their boss is interested in them. So I think that was something that I also learned along the way, that you really need to be invested in your employees and kind of upskill them and train them in food safety and all of that. So they've got skills to move on if they wanted to go and like kind of grow themselves in an industry as well. Yeah. So I think that was basically my learn out from Secco. And also one thing we didn't touch on was in terms of suppliers. I think it's important to also look at your suppliers and every like 9 to 12 months get quotes from competitors. Just to always know who your suppliers could be, who your partners can be. Because you quickly get stuck and 4 years later you're sitting with the same person, but you could actually be sitting with somebody that's 34 or 40% cheaper. And I think especially during COVID with costs that rose so much and shipping issues and supply issues where like the cost just became unbearable to import for even like cardboard supplies in South Africa to do your packaging. I think it was very important to keep going back to competitors and getting new quotes and pricing, because at the end of the day, you must try and keep your cost low to get the prices low for the consumer. Otherwise, they're going to stop buying your product.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you can manage all of that on your own.
I'm managing. I don't know, but yes, at the moment, doing that all myself. But it sounds like a lot of work, but it's 1 or 2 emails that you need to send out to suppliers for new quotes, and you look at competitors or new guys entering the market. There's so many new people entering that are importing dried spices or something, because unfortunately we don't have a spice trade in South Africa. So I think it's important just to keep your ear in the ground and know what's happening in the industry. To keep your business going and always at the right price point. Yeah.
Well, Wessel, thank you for your time today, and I'm very excited to hear that you're doing so well, especially the export orders. I think that's very exciting that such a young South African company can be playing on that level.
Yeah, no, thanks, Holger. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for the opportunity to chat about the business and my experience. I hope somebody can learn from it.
Yeah. And just tell us where people can order the product online.
Yeah, so for any consumers want to order it, they can get it from Tastelab, Yappy Chef. I think Deliver also sell this. You can get it delivered to your house. And then most Spars and Pick n Pays around the country.
Okay.
But if somebody's interested in wholesale, they can contact me directly either through our Instagram page or on our website, which is tastelab.co.za.
Thank you for listening to our stories here online. In the show notes, you will also find a link where you can subscribe to become part of our community and be notified when we upload our latest content.